Welcome to The Right Height, a blueprint for cultural impact. My name is Gavon, and I'm a strategist who's spent years connecting vision with execution. I've seen firsthand how the right insight can transform careers and companies. And this podcast dives into how cultural impact is built, how hype is sustained, and how emerging creatives can build long-term impact. If you're serious about leveling up as a creative or professional, grab a pen and paper or your notes app and get ready, because what you're about to listen to could be the key to unlocking your full potential. Before I get started, if this podcast brings you any bit of value in any way, shape, or form, the best way to support this podcast is to download this episode. Downloads directly impact the podcast's reach and helps get these conversations to more people who need them most. It takes 2 seconds and it will make a big difference. Thank you. All right, let's get into it. The reason why this podcast exists is because I get to meet inspiring people and we get to have the most amazing conversations. So, how would you introduce yourself?
My name is Zaira. I'm a Latina, originally born in Bogota, raised in Miami. I've been in New York for 12 years. I think I'm just kind of like a person in the world who isn't even specifically interested in some things, but just kind of is watching. I would call myself like a people watcher. And I remember I feel like the older you get, the more you're like, oh my God, I am really just like my parents. And I feel like I'm like, wow, there's so many things about my mom who raised me as a single mom in Miami. I'm so formed by that. We used to go get ice cream at this outdoor mall and she'd be like, let's get ice cream and sit and people watch. And I was like, why would we do that? That seems so boring, but she'd be like, let's watch. And she'd be like, oh my God, I love that woman's shoes, or look at that, or look at this. And I'd be like, this is just the strangest thing to do. And now it's full circle, because I'm like, that's what I do most of the time. And also it's literally what I do for work. I watch people and then I'm like, what are we doing here? So yeah, I feel like I'm just a person in the world who's watching other people and talking about it.
Wow, honestly, that explains your LinkedIn title, Professional People Watcher, which I love. I do agree that people watching is underrated pastime that that we should all be embracing.
Especially in New York, it's where else could you people watch of all kinds of people, even I have found myself on the subway more people watching than listening to music. I'm kind of sitting there, and what I found most interesting, and maybe it's because it's summer, I've been particularly interested in watching younger people, older teens, people in their 20s, these groups of friends that are, it's just they're really expressing themselves in a way that seems so different than me and my peers at that age. I've seen a lot of men in particular, that the way they're dressing, there's a lot of femininity to it. A lot of young guys with jewelry recently that I'm like, wow, it looks amazing. And they're owning this, and they're really not thinking about masculinity in this one way that me and my friends in our 20s did, because the norms were different. Versus I'm seeing even Simone Rocha and how she now has clothing for men, and it's extremely feminine, that looks like her feminine collection but for men. But I'm watching these kids, and they're going to the Lower East Side, and they're going downtown, and they're just doing this thing. And it's amazing to see what people feel good about doing now, which certainly people always have, but it just feels like it was different than when we were 20.
It's also so interesting to see the direct opposite, which is this preservation of masculinity. I just found this random guy on Instagram, and his name, he goes by Gent Z, gentleman. Have you seen this guy? He's has a YouTube channel. It's about preserving traditional sort of ideas of masculinity, whether it is the way you dress, how you carry yourself, how you speak, the hobbies you're interested in. And it's about helping Gen Z men grow up is sort of the premise of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, of course, there's the obvious foil of rise of conservatism and things like trad wife and the manosphere, which, you're right, is the absolute different foil to young men feeling like they can be fluid and not have to say, I am this or I am that. They're like, this is masculinity, even if it taps into traditionally female norms, versus the swing the other way. And I think you're right. And people have talked about this, is there is just a gap of like how we help men, boys become men. What does that look like? Versus there's more around becoming a woman, but men really don't. And like, where is that happening and where is it falling? But it's interesting to see like who comes in to fill in those gaps and in what way. So it sounds like this Gen Z person is like not ascribing like, is it good or is it bad? But it's like a specific perspective that seems a little more like, let's see it in a traditional way as opposed to like open to expression.
Yeah, for sure. Give us like an unpopular opinion you may hold about work or culture or creativity.
Okay, I have like a very like discipline specific one that okay, obviously like doing great work, coming up with like great strategy or like whatever the final deliverable is like is really important. But sometimes I think that like that final deliverable, it almost doesn't matter what that is, as long as it's like you have a general level of quality and like you are good at doing this work. Great. So you sort of assume it's going to be good. But the thing that is actually most important is like how you get a client through that process. So it's almost like the better you are at that, that's like the work to be done. Get someone through this challenge, this process, as opposed to like whatever you think the solution is that you're going to deliver.
I always try to keep strategy simple, and I always say strategy is getting you from point A to point B. Point B sort of becomes less important in the grand scheme of just the journey of it.
Yeah. Because sometimes I like get in a place where I'm like, okay, but I want to come up with an answer and I want it to be right. And as like a recovering like little like dork A+ student, it's like I need to be correct. Like what is the answer? Versus I feel like in the last, I don't know, as you become an adult and you're like in the real world and navigating real world. And I think also because I have experience having worked like at a direct to consumer brand, being on like perhaps the receiving side of strategy and having to like make the thing work in reality, not just like here's a theory of it, but like go practice it. It's almost like we don't need to overcomplicate it for one. And I was sort of thinking about what even is the practice of strategy, because obviously I'm trying to like wrap a container around like my new independent practice, and it's like what do I call myself? Because I think it's like, am I a strategist? Like yes, but is that the only thing? Is that the right term? So I was thinking about strategy practice is like, it's like learning how to think and then learning how to choose. Your point B, it's like, that's a choice. Like there is no singular eventual point B. It's kind of like the things in point A are just true because like here we are in this moment. This is point A. Point B is like, which one do we want? And then which one can we get? And then which one do we have like the desire for like, well, point B1 is like a lot harder than point B3. Do we have like, can we do it? Are we into it? Like, do we want to? And then it's like, let's try. And if it doesn't work, the ability to like bounce back and keep going and being like, that's fine. Like, it wasn't right, it wasn't wrong. We're just trying to like pivot again and make it fit.
I think too in our work, our job is like to make our clients look good to their boss, which
Yeah.
is like the wildest thing I had to learn. Like
Yeah.
maybe
The job is like not strategy.
your job is not to be smart; it's to make them look smart.
Yeah. And if you need to be a spotlight person, like this is probably not the work for you because you're like not going to get credit.
Yeah, and then like much less if you. I agree. Even like working in brand strategy and then going to cultural strategy or even creative, like you're still like setting a foundation for all of it, but like you're still at the beginning. You're not even what the end looks like.
Yeah. I think the funny thing too about when you're realizing like, okay, the job is like make my client look good, but my client works in this context of like 30 people that I will never meet. And then when you get into that meeting, you're like, why isn't this thing working? And you're like trying to identify like who is the snake in the grass in this meeting who is not saying yes to this? Like, who do I actually have to convince? It's like you think it's your client, but your client believes in you, trusts you, and hasn't actually told you that they have like a nemesis at work and that you have to convince the nemesis.
Yes. At the end of the day, our work is all about relationships. It's
Totally.
about like, do I like working with you? Do I respect what you have to say? Do I believe you? It's like a lot of it can come down to personality. It's like not even the fact that you spent days, weeks, months working on their project.
Yeah. Like sometimes you're just like not going to vibe with a person, which doesn't mean you can't like do the work and get there. It's just not going to be like the ideal state of other things. Like I feel like when we've worked in the past before, we were on some projects with clients who were amazing, and like my memories of it are really not even the work, but it's like how much we laughed during it, the crazy ideas we came up with, like almost how silly it seemed, but like in it being silly, it was really correct because it helped someone see a way of doing it. And we didn't contain ourselves to this like one way that was like the prescribed way of doing brand strategy or North Star work. We were like, well, what if we like talked about how Pomeranians and the color red is like my thing, and how like fashion and sustainability is like your thing. And those are the examples we give the client to understand like what should your brand be.
I love that. When do you feel the most creative?
Okay, I actually like really, I was telling you that I listened to your podcast episode the other day where you were laying out your week and like how you time box your days and like moments of being generative and moments of being like producing. And I like really respect that. And that's my dream, to be able to like, you know, create a schedule around which, okay, in this moment, this is my mechanism for creativity. And I feel like I haven't figured that out. I would say probably the thing that makes me most like thoughts creative and generative is like actually in discussion with friends, peers, people, or even like listening. I went to a panel and listened to other people talk, and I was like, I text myself anything that is something I want to remember. So I'm like pinned on my favorite of my own text. I like text myself the most, more than anyone texts me. Yeah, it's like an unhinged way to capture notes, and there's no way to search, but it's just the thing that has, I don't know, it was the easiest way, and now I'm like stuck on this format. So I feel like in conversations with people, like you will say something that will make me think of another thing, and like it's those moments of creativity. It's kind of like random, like it will just be like a random burst, and I will like jot down a thing, which is what's funny about the texting mechanism, because sometimes I will scroll through and be like, what has been interesting to me lately? Like, what have I offloaded as an interesting thing? And then I can kind of see like themes that are like always of interest. And maybe I'm not connecting the dots because I'm not sitting there being like this when I'm thinking it. But then I can put it together and be like, oh, I think what I'm really interested in is like this problem, and I keep coming back to it, or this problem and I keep coming back to it. So I feel like my creativity is often driven like by riffing, as opposed to, I don't know if I have like an independent mechanism of creativity, because I mean, I love going to like a museum or going out and, you know, exploring like a place that seems to be like a sort of mecca to a creativity. But I'm not sure that I leave the Met and I'm like, I have a great new idea. I'm kind of like, that was amazing. And I'm really impressed by people who do a thing I can't do. And I think I just like, maybe I'm even learning live in this moment that I'm just like a people person, like a chatter. Like I just want to have a combo and be like, what are we thinking about? Like let's spitball.
And that's what makes our friendship great. I was gonna build on that, and just to your point about being, having moments where you're generative versus having moments where you're trying to edit something and like publish it. I feel like part of my creative process is really just being, to your point, like sometimes it is about being a people watcher, sometimes it is about having a discussion. Oftentimes it's about, as our jobs as strategists, we are meant to be, they say, be out in the world. Like, if you want to work in marketing, advertising, branding, etc., like, don't read a book about marketing or advertising. Just go outside and see how people are living. Because I think there is like something really super like cool that we've talked about, where I love it when people take these like disparate signals and like craft this sort of narrative around humanity or a trend or whatever is like happening out in the world. And I think there are many times where I will see a random advert, or I will see a person walking down the street doing something or eating something or talking about something. It's either in an art gallery and it's a commentary on something, where then I'm like, these disparate signals are talking about this one thing. And now I have like a tab of all these bullet points of things that like I've seen. And I think that has really been an interesting, like, there's not a point of being creative, right? There's no like, I'm creative when you're a strategist, like creativity hits you. And
Yes.
it is sort of your job to, steward that little bit of that little knowledge into something that either is for you to keep or becomes a larger part of like your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we tried to do the artist way, right? We were trying to get into our creativity channeling and journaling.
And you say you do a lot of journaling in the morning, which is like something I fall on and off of. But yeah, what is that like for you? I'm curious because you're like pen to paper. Well, I'm like,
Yeah, I'm like, literally, here's my pen, and I buy these in a pack because they're my favorite pen, and it's all I use. Like, it really is like the artist way kicked it off. So I did it in 2020 when I was like laid off from the brand I worked at and was like, okay, the whole world is on pause. Let me pause. Like, let me do this book, see what I'm even like trying to do with my life. Cause I had been like a working person for like 10 years already. And I was like, I just don't have like this like vision of a career in a what am I doing with my life in a professional manner, and so I can't figure out what's next. So my friend had kept like she's a photographer and artist, and she was like, look, do this thing, it just like helps you clarify stuff. And like the main mechanism, as you know, of the artist way is like the morning pages, which is just 3 pages a day every day of anything, and then the artist date, which I literally have never done one, and I just can't carve out the time for myself. It's a problem. So I did them then, and I felt like it was so helpful in that moment to like clarify all of the things that like, because it was cool. It was like all of the things I might do as a next career. And then I like found strategy and started doing it. And that helped me sort of clarify in my own mind and work through at that moment a lot of imposter syndrome, honestly, of being like, why do I even think I can do this thing I've never done? Da da da. So like the pages helped then. And then I like lost the practice because I'm like, I just found out that you're a morning person and that I am the opposite. It's like our partners are this, I'm Trent and you're Ben. And in my dream world, I'm a morning person who can keep up this like practice forever. But when we started doing the artist way this time, like whatever in the spring, I picked it up again and I haven't lost it yet. So it's like the one thing that I'm like 90% of every week I'm getting to. And what I think is great about the pages is that there's just a lot of stuff that lives in my mind, which is like, not like I'm so smart. There's so much stuff in my mind. It's like sometimes I'm petty and dumb shit lives in my mind. And sometimes I'm annoyed and that stays with me. And it's actually a mechanism of like shaking things out of my head so that I'm like, great. Now for the rest of the day, because I already discussed this like one thing that annoyed me because I don't know, someone bumped me on the subway yesterday and like it was a whole thing. I've written it down. It's away. And now I can just like move on. It's almost like putting it pen to paper helps me move on. So I don't even use it as a practice of like, okay, I'm going to think about a really great like Substack to write, which as you know, Substack and like publishing anything is currently my nemesis. Like I can't make myself that visible for another day. But this way I'm like, now I can at least not be pestered by this thought and like move on from that.
That's real. That's real. I should be doing it more in that context as well because I have a lot of thoughts.
But you said you like voice memo and stuff.
I do voice memo. That has been a new like recent development. I'll be honest with you though, like I cringe when I look back at certain things. I've learned like I think I've given myself a little bit of like self-consciousness now that I like listen to myself speak, but I've also learned that one of my biggest issues that I'm sure you can share with is like I don't necessarily like to promote myself. I fear coming off as a showboat or I'm not really what I say I am.
Yeah, it's really funny. And I was like, when I was like, okay, all the things we might talk about today, should I bring this take to the table? And I'm going to because we've kind of gotten there naturally. But these feelings of like imposter syndrome and like, first of all, it's like even that you're self aware of the fact that like self promotion can be showboaty and can be like whatever means that you probably won't do that because you're so self aware that you will always be like a little bit restrained and probably like not say your full value, which like, has its own like pros and cons, right? But I always joke that like I would love to take a master class from like a con man, just like because they're so good at like being charismatic and convincing people of things and making people feel really good. Like the reason I think of like old movies where like there's con men who like, in small ways like trick people or stuff or like just, yeah, you just make someone really like trust you and like respect you or adore you sometimes, and you win their confidence. Like I didn't know that con man is short for confidence man. It's like someone who gives you this sense of confidence that you feel good about the thing you're going to do, even though I think people who get conned, like sometimes maybe kind of like no, but like it's what they need in that moment. Not saying conning people is okay, but I feel like the tactics that con men, that's what like makes it a bit of a spicy take, but the tactics of con men and how they show up to be so like self-confident and inflated
Yes.
is impressive, I think.
Yes. You and I had a conversation years ago about those tactics, and one of them was the Socratic method, the Socratic questioning method, where you position a question in such a way that the client is walking back into the answer that you want them to get to. And it's also in a way that they feel confident in saying that, okay, yes, that actually is the right answer just based off of that line of questioning. And I'm sure there's other things, but it is definitely a tactic that as a strategist or anyone in sales, like I'm sure the salespeople got it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like part of strategy is like you really need, like, for it to be successful, you need the client or the person who's going to take it forward to like believe in it. Like, I mean, in anything in life, like you can see other people's ideas and be like, cool, I get it. And it's not an idea I can embody and take forward, which is fine. But with strategy, it's like you can't convince someone that the idea you like the most is the best one because they're not going to use it. So it's like you have to meet them and make sure they are like in earnest yesing and owning the idea. So whether that's like helping them come around to it in their own way and or like building it alongside with them, which means giving up like a sense of your own agency in creating the strategy, which like I personally think is fine. Like it's not, I don't like strive on being like, I singularly authored this thing and now I deliver it to you. I'm more like, let's create this thing together because it's not mine at the end of the day. Like it can be anything to me, but it's actually like really important for you in this business. Like you need it to be yours. So how can we make it yours and how can we help you feel that way? Because you're the one who's going to have to present it to everyone once I like leave this engagement.
Yeah. How do you measure your own success then? Like if you were to say like this is your KPI, what do you feel like you've done a good job?
I honestly feel like being laid off just like completely shifted my sense of like what is self-worth in a professional setting where I was so deeply tied to the brand I worked for because like I was like the 11th hire, like I was like in it, right? And so there was a lot of ownership in it that was given to me like by the founders and things. Like they wanted us to all feel like we were building this together and we were like making the retail stores. Like it was amazing. But when I was laid off, I was like, oh my God, this whole like thing that I had created my identity left. So I've tried to make it so that like work in like a tangible sense is not going to be the thing that like makes me feel successful. So I think for strategy, that's like you can't feel like fulfilled only if your client applies the strategy or only if your client takes that creative and turns it into an ad or only if your client makes that product innovation that you said they should. Like those things are out of your control. So for me, I'm like, well, what can I control? I can control how we feel in the process of making the strategy. So like how myself and my team feels and how our client feels and how we all feel together. Like I can make sure it's a good time. And I can make sure that in that good time, it is a process of learning and thinking about how to think about this thing. Because the best thing I can give both anyone who's like working with me as junior, and I think the relationship is like, you know, goes both ways, like what a junior can do for me or any peer on a project. And my client is like a new way of seeing this challenge so that when we are no longer together, they're equipped to continue to view and question and like evolve that challenge or a challenge that comes up in the same shape that is like in a different context. So for me, it's more like when the project wraps, do we feel good? Like, are we still happy? Like, you know, there's a reality of like, you do sort of sprint to the finish line. Things can get a little crazy. Like, all of those things are okay if the way we got there the whole time we were like good to each other, kind to each other. Like, we still are happy at the end of the day. And I'm like, the work we delivered and how we got there with the client and what we're leaving them with, like, do we feel good about it? And if in honesty, we're like, we did the best that we could, we didn't leave anything on the table. and we delivered something that is going to be useful to the client, like it needs to be more than like a beautiful strategic object, which I think for strategists, you're like, wow, it's so amazing and fun to build a very strategery type object, an artifact, but that's not useful to the person who like has to work in this business and go do it. So it's like, do we feel good? Did we leave the client with something where they can like, back to the point of ownership, can they own it? Can they take it forward? Can they understand it? Can they explain it? Then I'm like, then we did everything we could, because everything else is like outside of our little node in the system. We don't know who that client has to talk to convince that team, to convince that team, that's just like outside of it. So the campaign might never be made, like the strategy might never be in place, the reorg, etc. But like that can't be the success. So for me, it's just like, did we enjoy it? Like, are we still happy here?
I love that. You just gave me a new metric to start measuring things by, because so much is out of your hands. I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on culture right now? I'm curious to hear what's been on your mind lately.
I feel like I have like done a really bad job of being as in it as I have like been at other times. So sometimes I'm like, do I even know what's going on? Like, so many people will be like, did you hear about this thing? Did you hear about that? And I'm like, no. And they're like, it's weeks old. And I'm like, my goodness, like, am I even like reading things online anymore? Well, I feel like I'm a little behind, which honestly keeps me up at night, where I'm like, am I intaking all of the information? But then it's like the foil to that is almost like, the speed of all of these things that come out, and then how quickly they fall off relevance. Like Sydney Sweeney and the American Eagle jeans. It's like, it was super hot take, and then super like, I don't even know if people are talking about that anymore. It's like, then a week, the stock was like, whoosh, it was like over. So I'm like, okay, like how much do you even miss when it moves so quickly, as opposed to how much more important is it to be like, let me almost like slow culture it and see like, what are the things that stand and what are the things that have always been, and like, then to your point, connecting it to signals out in the world, like a conversation you overhear, or like something someone is wearing, or some interesting interaction. So I feel like overall, I have not done a great job of what's happening. I know you and I were talking about all the fashion shakeups lately, and like the creative director chess. That's pretty interesting, just because I think it gives us a new thing to see of like, what's next at a time where like sustainability and like slow fashion and upcycling and secondhand is a thing. And it's like luxury. I guess like I know we've talked about dupes all the time, and I literally think about dupes and dupe culture all the time. Like it's always on my mind. And just even as it sort of is part of the dilution of like the idea of luxury and designer brands, and like, how much will people even pay for it anymore, because the prices have inflated and like that market is stalling. So it's like, what is even luxury versus like designer? Like, are those even the same? Like in my mind, they're not. You could be an expensive designer, but it might not be a luxury product. So it's almost like the redefinition of like luxury as a category, luxury as a concept. Like, what does it even mean?
Luxury brands lost their true role in culture, and they sacrificed like integrity and craftsmanship, um you know building a foundational house that has like lore and stories, for like really quick hits on social media, following trends that again are in and out before the sun goes down. Like, there is something that they lost
Mm-hmm.
facing speed, and now I think they're trying to go back, but like people can't unsee what they've experienced. And so I feel like our system is broken. Personally, I feel like we're in this like weird moment where like we're seeing someone lie to us. And as they're lying to us, we're like putting the bag in the cart, and we're like, I know this is a cute bag, but like it's like I'm gonna buy it cuz like I know it holds some value, but I know the rest of it is complete crap. And it's just like this really weird place of being sort of like a dissatisfied consumer, or like a mistrusting consumer, where you're consuming with the understanding that this is probably fake. Like, it's weird. And like what's fake knowing that it's fake makes you feel better that they're at least saying it's fake. And like the thing that it is taking up after may be just as like constructed for consumption. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's why I think like I like really love fashion and like buying clothes and like, like I mean, loving brand is like the reason I'm in strategy. Like I remember when I figured out strategy was a discipline, it was like when Aimé Leon Dore was very new because it would have been like 20 I got into strategy in 2020 in the end of 2020 and like the 2 years before ALD was like had their little store on Mott Street and I don't remember how I even found out about it, but it was like I remember thinking that brand at that time and for many years after was like peak expression of this singular idea in a way that felt so honest and true when you saw it online, when you walked into the store, the way they thought about what they would do collabs with and who they would collab with, how they chose their models. Like, and then when I found the words around brand, I was like, oh my God, I totally get it. Now this is this thing, this universe building that this person is doing. And it's like so spot on. And it is so like from their own perspective and background. And like they are just doing it with conviction, right? And they're doing it for themselves seemingly. And like when you do things for yourself with this point of conviction, like people get it. And I find that lately I like want to go, I like look at my wardrobe sometimes and I'm like, this is like stuff I've owned forever. I would love something new, when you're like, I just want like one new thing to feel a little refreshed, just a little treat. And I like will have, I think I told you that I found the limits of tabs on iPhone.
Yes.
Yeah, it's 500. So I found it out the hard way. And a lot of those tabs are like things I've thought about buying that I just like truly in the process of searching and looking at all these brands that like still look amazing. I like actually get fatigued and disinterested because I'm like, something about this is just like not making me excited. And I think it's like led me to a place of like where primarily how I dress now is like extremely simple. Like, I have like 4 colors in my wardrobe. It's like black, white, like camel and red. And like, that is it. And I just like needed to simplify it and streamline it. And I was like, I just want to look good so I feel good so I can like walk in this world as like a confident person. But it has been at the expense of like, I don't feel like I'm like looking unique and necessarily like putting my own spin on things. And I'm trying to like get back to that place, but I'm also like struggling with finding the inspiration to like re-unlock that version of myself. And I don't know if it's just like, to your point, where we are in brands right now, where there's so much chasing the trend and then it's gone and then chasing something else and then it's gone. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what should I be buying from you? Like, what's the vibe? What's the thing? What is the thing that you're standing for that I would like to align myself with, that I would like to represent? So I just turn a lot to like brands I've always worn or like vintage things that like live in my mind from like the 90s, honestly, which I know is like so nostalgic for people, but it's like the stuff my mom wore because she was like in her 30s and her 40s in like the 90s and early 2000s. And she's such a fashion person that she like loved DKNY and Calvin Klein and like would save up to like get that one thing or like a Gucci thing. Like, so that to me is both nostalgic and seeing my mom, it's very like personal. And it just like looks good, I think, for like the modern type woman I'm trying to be and truly avoid of like what is interesting. But then I walk out and I see people who like dress so interesting. And I'm like, you look amazing. Like, why can't I figure that out for myself right now? So I'm kind of like in a weird place with that.
I am in the same place. I'm in the process of uniforming my closet because I just got rid of like a big batch of clothes and I was just feeling like some of this stuff is not, it was served a purpose. It was probably picked up because it was a trend that was happening at the moment. Now that trend is gone and I have zero identity in that.
Yes.
And like, what is my identity? And part of me has learned that sometimes it isn't necessarily about what I'm wearing, but it's just like the energy that's put out in this world. And that can be my unique sort of like business card. I also think that like, and not to call back to it, but like you do need to start that Substack because that is also a form of style and expression. And like, I think we as creatives, as strategists, have to find, especially people who love fashion, have to find other ways in this present day to express ourselves, because everyone's eyes are on fashion right now. And because of that, I think there is this performativity that is just sort of wrapped up in all of it. And you and I just talked about like not being performative. And so it's sort of like unfurling ourselves from it a bit and like finding other ways. Cause I feel like brands like American Eagle, there's another brand who like just launched a Substack. Like, I think there's a way in which like our modes of self-expression have become so diverse that we can build that world for ourselves in other ways.
Yeah, it's really funny because like part of the leap to independence is, or independent like freelance and strategy practice is like an assertion of this thing that my partner sent me in like a tweet where it was like, you can just do things, like, period. You can just do things, which is such a funny concept because, like, of course we know that, but I'm like, can we just do things?
Revolutionary.
Oh, and it's true because it's like, yes, that is a statement that is true, but like within confines for so many reasons, geographically, like your identity, your upbringing, like there's so many physical and real barriers. And then like what we talk a lot about, which is like emotional and mental barriers, where no one ever like told us we had to be one way, but you sort of like intuit it and like do it. And then I think, and what I've been trying to work towards and what we've talked a lot about is like realizing that you don't owe people to like shape shift into their expectation of you, and that like you can just free yourself from that and be like, this is who I am, and like it's imperfect and maybe it's like not for everyone, but it will be for a few people, and like that's all that matters. Like the people who get it will get it, and we will have good conversations together and we will make good work together. And there are so many people on earth that actually it's fine. Like I don't want to be for everyone. Like, I mean, we talk about it in strategy all the time. Like, you can't be for everyone. That's not true. So you have to choose like who you are for. And it's just like, so what is that? Like that alignment, like what you want to wear, how you want to look, what you want to present to other people, like the energy that you bring. It's why some people that walk around the earth, I'm like, so like, I'm just like amazed by some people when they are so clearly embodied in who they are. And like embodied has been like my personal word. I probably tell my therapist about it every week, and she like, but it's like what I'm looking for, you know. I'm feeling like I'm here somewhere and I want to be like aligned and embodied, because when you are that way, it's like you do have a sort of delusional sense of self that is just like rooted in your like confidence, and you're like open to failing and open to failing in public and like open to changing your mind and like hoping that you do because you should. But we live in a world that's like, don't ever change your mind. You've said that one thing in a tweet or a Substack. Now, how come you're going back on it? And it's like, because I'm a human and I'm just like learning and I've got a new information from someone or from something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sense of embodiment is like what I think lets us say, you know what? I can just do things. And I've decided today I'm going to just do this thing and see what happens.
Something that you said made me think about one thing I heard recently, which is this idea of being perceived trying. Like trying something and someone seeing you trying makes you not want to try.
Yeah, it's like cringy.
And it's like that has held me back for so many years. Just being perceived trying has made me put down things, has made me delay certain things. And it then makes me incredibly frustrated when I see someone try and succeed. And I can admit and be like, I'm jealous that like some people try and stumble their way to something great. And I'm here somewhat in the same spot because I was too afraid to be perceived trying.
We are lucky enough to be able to go and like put in the energy and the time to try this thing. And yet our concern about how other people will see us, because the idea of like trying and like failing, right? Like not knowing how to do it or needing to ask for help is like so painfully like externally embarrassing and cringy. But that's just like, that's how things happen. Like there is no other way to do it.
Things get done.
Yeah. Is trying, is like not knowing, doing, and just trying to do the thing. Like that's just it. But I think there has been a lot of like sort of like conversation in the air around like, you know, redefining cool. And I just like actually went to this day's panel about cool, and it was like sort of, does cool exist? Whatever, like what does it mean now? And I think a lot of it is just, it is cool to care about something, and it is cool to try, and then it is cool to do. Like it's not necessarily cool anymore to be like aloof or nonchalant to the point where you're like, I don't care about anything. It's actually like, no, you should care about things, and you should care about what you care about, and and it shouldn't matter what other people think. If you care about something, people can tell, and there's like passion and enthusiasm, and like you kind of like just will succeed by the nature of caring and trying and then eventually doing. It may not look like what you thought the doing would be, but to your point, it's going to be like some sort of different success or like new thing uncovered. Here's something that you did make me think about that's been on my mind. It's like, I'm very like by nature, I would say pessimistic. My partner would make it sound nicer and say like realistic, which is really nice of him. But how much do you think it's our responsibility to like, and I think if you do strategy, like you have to look at things in a world of possibilities. Like we operate in opportunities and possibilities. But how much do you think it is our job or our like responsibility to be optimistic about things?
We have to be the insightful human in the room that like finds the way forward, that shines a light at the future. We craft futures sometimes. If we're given that level of responsibility and oversight, we can dream of a brand new future, which is like low-key what brands were created to do, was like have a vision and sell that vision, sell that lifestyle, that way of being. And so I do think inherently we have to present really attractive futures. And like the best way to present an attractive future, you know, is to be optimistic about it and to showcase all the positives that it can bring. We have to believe in what we're saying for the most part, to a degree, whether it's being a con man or being a true advocate.
Which is nice when there's the alignment and you're like, I actually deeply, truly believe in this. And so I can be this like psychotically passionate person in the room where everyone's like, okay, you should probably present the work because you are really into it.
Well, this was fun. I want to like round this out. What's something you stopped doing?
I have stopped like worrying so much about whatever other people think about me or my decisions. And I think in a professional sense, it's let me feel like the right and the agency to say, hey, this is how I think we should do it. Like, let's discuss. And so just like owning like my perspective and my way of thinking and being like, I think I do know a few things. And then personally, I think it's helped me start to get back to like aligning myself with who I am, because I'm like, if I just do things that I want to do in a way that doesn't hurt anyone and I treat everyone with respect and care, then what I do shouldn't matter to other people as long as it's not doing any harm to them. You know, like do no harm. But I just want to walk through this earth like happy, aligned, like having a good time. And that has really helped.
I needed that. Thank you so much for jumping on the pod. You are always welcome to come back. I'll have to bring you back for an exclusive episode. So thanks again.
Yes. Anytime. Thanks, G. It's so fun. We have so much more tea.
Yes, always.